Welcome back, everyone. I'm T,
And I'm Nessa.
and together we are the Casual Fangirls. Today we have a special show for you guys. This is our semi-annual "What Are We Watching" episode. So we'll just be discussing the current things we are watching as well as what we're looking forward to. No rhyme or reason to it all, so just hop in. We'll put in the description the things that we actually discuss. But before we hop into anything, let's make sure we give some level of a spoiler warning. That's what I hit him with the spoiler warning.
All right, guys. So this is our blanket spoiler warning for all things fandom. If the show or movie is more than 2 years old, some details may be given away. However, we will be giving spoiler-free reviews on certain things, and we'll try our best to warn you guys if there's a major plot point or a plot twist or something like that that we're gonna discuss. With that being said, let's get into it.
Sounds good. So first things first, we wanted to discuss some of the recent things we both watched. So two of those things are Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore, and the other one being the Disney show Moon Knight. Because of our busy schedules, we're not always able to do shows on everything. So these two things kind of were the things that kind of fell to the wayside in order to prioritize other things. So let's just hop into it to give like our brief review of these two entities. So let's start with Fantastic Beasts since that came out first, I believe. Um, we'll do three words to describe. Did we like it? And then we'll hit you with a slight spoiler warning for each one, and then we'll move on to other things. So let's start with our three words to describe. So Nessa, how would you describe Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore?
So I will definitely say that the movie is well made. The costuming is great. The cinematography is beautiful. Everybody looks good. Um, I just visually enjoy looking at it. So I will say it's definitely a well made movie. They put their money into it. They put in that aspect. There are great effects, right? If we're
Yeah.
gonna have a magical movie, we need to make sure that the effects look good, and that they can hold up and everything like that. And I don't know if you guys can see my screen in the back, but I was rewatching it. When I say recently, I mean this morning. And so I'm like, okay, it's months later, things have settled, and it still looks good. We'll see how long it holds up. Um, and then my last word is nostalgic. From the music to even the people that we encounter to going back to Hogwarts. There's a lot of nostalgia. They're pulling on our little heartstrings, our little Harry Potter loving heartstrings, to kind of, I think, bring us back into the movie. So those are my three words to describe. What about you?
I said very similar things. I said it was comforting, to balance out your nostalgic feeling. It felt as soon as you hear those chords start playing, you're just like, oh, we're back in the magical wizarding world, and you just feel like you're being wrapped up in a blanket on a November evening, watching the first Harry Potter movie all over again. So that is always really, really fun. I also thought it was visually satisfying. I felt like they nailed how a lot of the magic looking at the fantastic creatures are always fantastic. Sorry for using the same word twice, but it is really fantastic to see all the magical creatures on screen, however few we may get. But I did think that the plot felt very jumbled,
Hmm.
and it felt like they were trying to do a lot in a little bit of time. And I'm wondering if this is a trend that we're just going to start seeing across different fandoms, that I wonder if studios are just anxious that they may not be able to finish telling the story over different episodic entries. And so they're trying to cram a lot into one particular TV show or movie. And it's making me a little disassociated with the franchises. But that's something we can talk about a different time. I say all that to say, did I like the movie? The answer is yes, but mainly because I just like being back in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Did
Yeah.
you like the movie, Nessa?
I think it's a good film. It's not great. It's not something that I would want to naturally rewatch over and over again. I rewatched it because it's been a while since we've seen it, and I knew we were going to talk about it. So I was like, let me refresh my memory. I felt like I I I don't I don't love the story they're telling. I think that's what it is. What it comes down to is like, if you want to make a Dumbledore movie, just say that. If we're making Fantastic Beasts movie, let's do that. If it's a new movie, let's do that. I I wish the storyline was around something else. Like I'm okay now that I think it's funny because I think when we were first like reading the books and watching the movies, we are like, no, I need to know what happened between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. And now
Yeah.
that we're getting it, I'm like, the mystery was kind of okay for me. We could have done a completely different story, and I think I would have been happy with that. So, do I like it? Yes, with an asterisk. I ain't gonna go running back to it though.
I think that's a fair point. And to your point, when you told me before we started recording that you watched it this morning, I was like, that's bold because I've seen it on HBO Max like pop up every single day. I was like, you should watch this because you watched every other Harry Potter movie on here. And I was like, no, I don't really want to sit through it again.
Yeah.
And to your point about like one of the reasons about the storyline, that's actually my big nitpick, and we'll just like hop there next. Spoiler warning, we're gonna talk a little bit more specific about the movie itself. My main nitpick is not really understanding who the series is about. So over the last three movies, in Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them, what was it? Something Grindelwald. Wow, I
The
forgot.
Crimes of Grindelwald.
Yeah, he's a bad man pajama. Crimes of Grindelwald, and now The Secrets of Dumbledore. I felt like each one of those movies was telling a story about a different individual, and that's not inherently bad, but I don't think they set us up to expect that, and because we don't expect it, it comes off as feeling disjointed. So the first one, the story was obviously about Newt and Credence, kind of almost equally, the mystery around Credence and Newt's like having to deal with all that when he got his other stuff going on. Then with the Crimes of Grindelwald, we were really into what Grindelwald was doing, and Newt was kind of playing this like background because he was still trying to be like uncover the mystery of Credence. And now in this movie, I don't think there's even really a mystery really happening in this movie besides what is Grindelwald's plot that we're trying to uncover. And it just feels like too many protagonists for each movie without there being some common thread. Like, are we saying that everyone is just a fantastic beast and we're exploring all the nuances of the duality of good and evil and all of the tension that's happening within these characters? I'm okay with that. I don't know if that's what what this series is trying to do, but I just think some direction, some North Star from the creators would make all the jumbledness feel a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop there and ask you what your nitpick is before we end on a higher note, which is the
highlights. So my nitpick was the whole, and spoiler, we already gave y'all a spoiler warning, but just to reiterate, but the whole chillin' part of the story with, so we meet a new beast, the chillin', and basically they're supposed to be able to like sense the good in people and that whole kind of thing. But like, I honestly could have done without all of that, and that part it didn't do anything for me. It didn't add to the movie. I would have been okay without it. So that was my whole nitpick thing.
I would agree and add that part, excuse me, part of the reason that fell short was because they didn't really spend a lot of time on it. You see it at the beginning of the movie, you see it kind of in the middle of the movie, but you don't really understand what the importance of this thing is until the end. And it doesn't leave the audience actually emotionally tied to this animal, I think is really what it is. There's no ties to it. So like, why should we care? Right. So I agree. On the flip side, dies. Right. It's not like right. Spoiler. But also that came out way more than 2 years ago.
Yeah, so y'all.
Fine. Or even Aragog, who like, Hedwig we saw in all 7 books and movies, but Aragog we saw for a hot second in book and movie 3, and then when he passes away in book and movie 7, it's like, damn, I know that's sad because, or Norbert, like screw it, Norbert was like 1 chapter in the book. And we didn't even get we got Norbert for like 5 seconds in the movie. So like, I feel way more tied to those fantastic creatures than this chillin'. They didn't even name the chillin'. Like, how am I supposed to get close to somebody you don't name? So anyways, On the flip side of that, I didn't. But this what something I got out of this movie when I walked out the theater. I was like, okay, I'm glad I at least got that, and that was closure to the Credence storyline,
Mhm.
which obviously was like the big mystery in the first movie, and also essentially the entire plot of the second movie
Right.
was what is Credence's background, and we actually learn what that is in this movie. And honestly, like I wasn't dissatisfied by the reveal. I was like, okay, like that is something, sure, fine, like I'm a little mad I didn't guess it, but other than that, is like, yeah, like why didn't we ever think that? Spoiler. What's his name? Dumbledore's brother. Wow, my brain is not working today. What'd you say?
I rewatched.
Yeah. What's his name?
Aberforth.
Aberforth. I was like, A. I was like, it's not. What is it? Okay. Anyways, I was like, Aragog. No, I just said that. We never think about Aberforth, and apparently, in the last movie, someone's like, everybody always forgets Aberforth. She was priming us. She was
They
priming
did.
us in that book, in that movie, to
Because
think
even
about
in the
his love life.
movie, no one knew that Dumbledore had a brother. Everyone was like, Dumbledore's brother? Who? What? You have a brother? So yeah, they've been priming us for that for a long
And it also makes sense, just really quickly. What I was thinking about it, if you take, I mean, we have to, it's canon. The fact that Dumbledore went out of his way essentially to try to to try to get Aberforth to see reason that like he needs to step in to help Credence, who's his son. I've always wondered why Aberforth stayed so loyal to Dumbledore. Like why he let Dumbledore use his pub for things and like was always there to support. Yes, it's his brother, but if he had that much animosity towards Dumbledore for Ariana's death, you would think that there would still be a lot of tension between the two of them. And so learning that Dumbledore helped facilitate Aberforth reuniting with his son just gives me more nuance to their relationship.
time.
So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that from the movie.
Yeah.
What
Um,
about you?
my highlight was all the magic. I love seeing it, all the magical fights, everything. Even on the rewatch, like spoiler, but Credence and Dumbledore go at it, and
Mhm.
like just watching like how Dumbledore moves, I was like, oh, Dumbledore's that man, like. But we do see new forms of magic, and just all the effects look really, really great. The acting was so good, the way just everybody was into it,
Yeah.
sold it. We will say that Johnny Depp is not in this film and has since been vindicated of the reasons uh, why he was taken off the film. If y'all don't know the stuff going on behind it, go look it up. We're not going to get into it.
Who do you prefer as Grindelwald?
The Johnny Depp. I think the film was lacking from not having Johnny Depp there. Not that the dude who plays Grindelwald is bad
He's
by
not bad.
any means.
He's
He
not
is
bad.
great. He's a great actor. He brought the character. It was fine. But there's just this thing about Johnny Depp
A
that,
mysticism.
yes, there's a mysticism, there's a manicness behind him.
Mhm.
There's just ways that he takes on characters that especially if you've seen Crimes of Grindelwald, it just feels like that energy is missing. And I think the movie missed that.
I'll say two things real quick. One, I totally agree with you about Johnny Depp, and I think when I left the theater, I thought I was like, hey, I'm glad we got closure for Credence, but also I was left very like I can't tell if Grindelwald was actually in love with Dumbledore, and this is something we'll get into later. But um, I think if the way Johnny Depp would have played it, we would have been way clearer as to whether or not he was, because Johnny Depp
Mhm.
has this way of being cold-hearted, but like you could see in his eyes, like something that Johnny Depp does with his eyes, that's just like he is lying on purpose or like whatever it is. I just there were certain moments, especially moments where Grindelwald and Dumbledore were together. It was in those moments I wish Johnny Depp was playing that
Yeah.
role. And the other thing I would say about the battle between Credence and Dumbledore, as soon as it happened on screen, I was like, oh, we're in the mirror dimension
Right. That's what it looks
from the
like.
MCU. I was like, okay, so this
It's
magic
never
works
clear
everywhere.
where they're at or what type of magic they're using or what's happening, but it's cool looking, and it definitely does remind you of the mirror dimension in MCU
Yeah.
for sure. Right.
So that was Fantastic Beasts and Secrets of Dumbledore. Stay tuned. At some point in the future, we'll probably touch on the magical world of Harry Potter and all that stuff again at some point. But all in all, we're gonna let that rest for now. We don't even know if another movie is coming out. We do know that originally the Fantastic Beasts series was going to be 5 movies. We're now 3 movies in. Not sure if we're gonna get another one with how this movie performed and what's happening with the author of the original series and everything like that. So we'll see. The other thing that we both watched recently was Moon Knight. So let's move on to that. And we'll do a very similar structure of how we describe it if we like it and one highlight and nitpick just before we move on to like all the other things we've been watching separately. So with Moon Knight, Nessa, how would you describe Moon Knight?
There's definitely elements of horror, so there's some horror tones in there. It reminds me a lot of The Mummy. So I mean, if you're
Hmm.
into that, you might be into this. And well acted. Oscar Isaacs was amazing. I can't. Him and Ethan Hawke. Jesus,
Oh my goodness.
Ethan Hawke was eating it up, boy. He was
Oh, he was
eating it up.
chewing the scene, man. He
Yes.
was.
Yes, he's the villain. Like I never knew I needed him as that kind of a villain, but like he does it and he does it well. So those are my words to describe Moon Knight. What about you?
So with Moon Knight specifically, I thought the highlight of it, and I binged it last weekend, and in the last 7 days, I've been telling every single person I know that they need to go watch it. Um, Trying to give them the proper expectation of why I'm telling them to watch it, which is it is so psychologically intriguing to me. Like
Mm,
superhero crap aside, and all that other stuff that we're used to seeing from MCU movies, this show had me thinking about my own personal identity so much afterwards that no other property has really done this to me since The Matrix, if that makes sense. Like I'm taking it way back, but it took me, I had to watch that movie
yeah.
4 or 5 times before I understood what was happening. So I thought it was psychologically treating. I thought there was a lot of purposeful writing, meaning the show deals with mental disorders, mental illness, and by the end of the series, it was obvious they put a lot of thought into how they wanted to portray specifically dissociative identity disorder, DID. Um, so I really appreciated how they did that. And I've seen some reviews of people who actually work in the field of psychology who applauded the show on some of the aspects on how they explain the disorder and everything. So I thought that was great. And just overall, I thought it was really thought provoking. And like I said, I've been thinking about it for 7 days straight and I can't stop. So I would highly recommend people watch it. I would caveat it though that it's not your typical superhero movie.
Yeah.
You are expecting a lot of action. You're not going to get a whole lot of action. It's a character development story, very similar, I would say, to Loki or WandaVision. Probably more WandaVision when it comes to there's a mystery that we're trying to get to the bottom of this character's identity, and all the action is saved for the last episode, just like in WandaVision.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I would recommend definitely. So I say a lot to say I liked the show. Did you like the show?
It was cool. It was cool. It's not a show that I would run back to. I didn't completely enjoy it as I was watching it. I started it when it first came out, and by episode 3, I was just like, mm.
Mhm.
And when T said that she was watching it, I was like, all right, let me give it like another shot or whatever. And it's better than what I remembered. But like you said, the the parts that it does well is the character development. The superhero stuff to me is subpar in everything, but all the character development, the dialogue, the going inside of his mind, like Asylum is probably I would think the best episode of the season, which is the
Mhm.
penultimate episode.
Mhm.
So I it was cool. It was cool. I'll leave it at
That's
that.
fair. That's
What
fair.
is a nitpick that you have about the show?
So so you mentioned in your descriptions that it gave you like a mummy type feel to it. one thing that bothered me about the show is that I felt like the tone kept changing. I felt like the show was trying to balance being like an Indiana Jones action adventure with like the psychological things of like Inception. Like, is he in his mind? Is this real? Is this not? With also this weird like, and I'm describing it as Power Rangers because of the last episode when you see like the huge gods fighting in the back. It felt like, do you remember in Power Rangers where like the Power Rangers would be fighting and you would see like the huge avatars like in the background, like
Yeah.
above them fighting? It felt very Power Rangers esque. Um, but it was trying to balance the adventure with the psychological thriller mystery with this like action superhero thing, and I don't think that they balanced that well. I think if they would have chose one, the show would have been a million times better. Probably if they would have chose just the adventure or just the psychological thriller. Like, I don't even think if they chose the superhero bit, it would have been that much better. But if they would have just leaned into one of them a lot more, I would have been a happier camper. What about you?
Gotcha. For me, the CGI of the suit was my nitpick. I didn't think it looked good. I didn't love it. Now the Mr. Knight suit,
It's
that
dope.
was popping. But the Moon Knight suit, the regular one, I did not like it. It always kind of took me out of my element every time I saw it. So I was not into it at all. But
So
no, go ahead.
I was going to say that Nessa and I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and one of our favorite podcasts is the Midnight Boys on the Ringiverse Network. And I listened to their review from like the first or second episode of the show, and they were talking about the suit, and they mentioned that we're probably going to see a lot of people dressed up as Moon Knight or Mr. Knight for cosplay, like in Halloween moving forward. And someone said there's a really fine line, like between the Moon Knight suit and like a KKK outfit because of the hood.
Yeah, if
And
you
I think that's like it's highlighting one of the issues with like the CGI and the way that the costume is designed.
But if you've looked if whenever you get a chance, like if you look at how it looks in the comics, it looks way worse. It looks
Oh, does
definitely
it?
more like a KKK suit.
Okay.
They actually they actually did, I think, a pretty good job. But yeah, I think what he's saying is like if people are gonna do a DIY type of Moon Knight suit, it can get kind of tricky
Racy real quick.
in how it might look.
Agree. Agree. Uh,
Um, on a more positive note, though, my highlight was watching Oscar Isaacs flip between all the different
Fantastic.
personalities. Um, and even so, okay, is this spoiler free or are we giving spoilers?
Spoiler warning.
Okay, so spoiler warning, he plays three different personalities. And between the last two that we see, between Mark and Jake, there's such subtlety in there, but like just the way he moves his face, the way he uses his voice, like
The accents have been
he,
all over the place.
yeah. But even with the accent, right? It as we go into the series, it becomes clear why it's like this shoddy English accent where you're like, dang, you didn't even study up. But it's like, oh no, you're doing this on purpose. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this makes sense. Okay. So I think the way he brought all three characters to life, I think was beautiful. He did an amazing job. So it's for me, he was my highlight. He saved the show, basically.
I mean, to your point, I really think this would have been way better as a movie. I think this is the first. I think this is the first Disney Plus series where I was like, I would have preferred to see this as a movie because we would have got better CGI because the budget would have been bigger. And I don't know, there's just something about Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaacs playing on the screen and giving like fantastic performances that
Mm-hmm.
makes me want to elevate it to like a movie theater experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was so great. I mean, hopefully they're nominated for stuff anyway at some point. But I can absolutely like seeing this as like a two a 2 or 3 trilogy movie I would have been totally happy with that as well. Especially seeing Ethan Hawke on the big screen. I'm actually kind of sad they got rid of him so quick.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Spoiler. They got rid of him so quick. The other thing I will say is that my highlight of the show was seeing Egyptian mythology in this medium. I don't. It's rare that we get to be introduced to Egyptian mythology specifically in fantasy stories on the big screen, and I'm considering Disney Plus the big screen at this point in time. So that was, as someone who's likes all kinds of mythology, specifically Greek and Egyptian, I was very into it. Like when Tara showed up on the screen, I was like, of course she's here, like because I understand her role in Egyptian mythology. Like I read somewhere that someone was trying to make parallels between like her being the god of fertility and like women to a certain extent, that like her being the one to help guide them through was trying to heal Mark's relationship with like his mother. And I was like, that's a cute like deduction to make, but it's not related because that is Tara's job, is to help like chauffeur the souls like through the duat and into the reeds. Like I just knew that about Egyptian mythology because she was going to show up anyway.
Yeah.
So I say I like to say that like I just enjoyed seeing all of that on the big screen.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. So those are the things that we've watched simultaneously, but there are things that we are watching and reading separately that we're getting into. So we are here to share that with you guys. So I guess I'll kick it off
Do
and
it.
try to run through my list as quickly as possible. All right. So the first thing that I have on my list is The Boys season 3. It just wrapped up. I just finished watching it. Basically, in a nutshell, The Boys gives us a look at how soups would be in the real world. Butcher, Mother's Milk, Kiwi, Kimiko, and Frenchie make up The Boys. It's a group whose purpose is to basically take down any bad soups and bring them to justice. They hate soups. They don't want them running around. They don't want them out here. And because like in this world, empowered people are basically a business. So Vought is the big company that sponsors them, especially a group called the Seven, which is basically this world's parallel to the Justice League. And so everything is based around business. They do commercials, they do appearances, they make music, anything that you can capitalize off of, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, why not, right?
The least they could do is bring in some money if they're going to be breaking everything.
Right. Exactly. So, so basically what I love about this show is that it has no boundaries. This is not the MCU. This is not the DCEU. It is TVMA. So you are going to see and get everything, which, I mean, aside from like the violence and stuff like that or whatever, they're just different social commentary that they go into that the MCU, I feel like, wouldn't touch in the way that they do. They are very bold, very in your face. This is not subtext. This is we're gonna put it right in your face, and that's what I really, really love about the show. From episode 1, it has you on your toes, and this season is no different. It definitely lives up to that tradition. Basically, in this season, Butcher and the boys are trying to take down Homelander with a new weapon. Friendships are tested, boundaries are crossed. We learn more about our favorite characters. So some of those people you weren't sure about, we get more of their backstory. And the season, it wraps up so well because it answers so many questions, but leaves us looking forward so much more. And I love that. It was honestly one of the best shows on TV this year. Everybody needs to go check it out. I put my brother onto it, and he was texting me as he was watching it, and he was like, "Yo, this is crazy! This is amazing!" It's really, really a great show on all types of levels.
Nice.
Next one.
What else you got?
Next one I got is Stranger Things season 4. So that also just wrapped up, and I just finished watching that. There was a little break. So they basically have what they're calling season 4 volume 1 and then season 4 volume 2, which is basically 2 episodes, but honestly I think it's like about 4 hours of TV. So, but following season 3, the gang has been all split up, life is moving on, some of the kids are struggling with moving on, while others are trying to figure out where they fit in the world and where they want to go, what they want to do with their lives. But things are never quiet in Hawkins for long. So a new threat emerges that is connected to the Upside Down. As we're seeing kids being killed, there's a whole mystery around that. Who is this killer? What is this threat? How does this connect to Hawkins and Elle and all the other kids? And I definitely loved all the revelations and changing relationships that we see amongst the crew. Uh, Dynamics definitely shift. We learn more about everyone and their motivations and their past. There was some. These kids are the bee's knees. No, but honestly, like their performances are freaking amazing. Like I don't know where they found these children from, but they be out here doing the damn thing for real. Um, Great season of TV. One of the better seasons of the show. Definitely check it out, guys. It's amazing. It's really, really good. Next, I have Bob's Burgers movie, which was just recently released.
I've been meaning to watch that. Yeah.
Yes, do. I think it's like on Hulu, HBO
Yeah.
Max.
It's on a couple of places. Yeah.
By the way, The Boys is on Amazon Prime. Stranger Things is on Netflix. Bob's Burgers you can catch on HBO Max and Hulu. It might be on something else too, but I can't think off the top of my head. Basically, the movie begins with Bob, Linda, and the kids determined to have an amazing summer. However, things take a sharp turn when Bob gets denied a loan, and a skeleton is found in a sinkhole that appears in front of Bob's restaurant. Louise, Tina, and Jean are on a mission to discover who the murderer is as Bob and Linda try to save the restaurant. If you love the show, you're going to love this. Honestly, it feels like one huge episode. There are a lot of musical numbers, so be prepared for that. That's not something that I was necessarily prepared for. Although throughout the series they do drop, little musical numbers in the shows here and there. But it's not a musical. I don't want y'all to think that that's what I'm saying. It's not a musical, but they do drop some fun numbers in there. But if you like the show, you will love the movie. It's pretty good. I think it'll be one of those things that like it's very similar to like the Simpson movie, to be honest, where it's like, oh, this wild thing is happening in town, but it just feels like one big Simpson episode. So it's kind of along those lines, but it'd be one of those things you'll probably end up rewatching or putting in the background as just like, as you're doing other stuff.
We love those. And essentially when you were just giving the synopsis of what's happening, as soon as you said, I was like, of course that would happen. Of course the kids would focus on the murder and so yeah.
Absolutely. The next one I have is, so now this one is, listen guys, we don't just do superhero stuff, whatever. Yes. To me, I put this on my list because I found that it is like capturing the attention of pop culture and social media and everything like that. And the show I'm going to talk about is P-Valley.
Okay, so we just a peek behind the looking glass. We have an outline usually that we're looking at, as we're just to make sure we stay on track as much as we can. I see on the outline you didn't write anything for it, and I actually don't know what P-Valley is.
Okay, yeah. Honestly, it's just because I didn't.
Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine.
But basically,
listen, hold on, real quick. Let's stop. Nessa and I have full-time jobs.
Yes.
That we work way more than 40 hours a week.
Yes.
And we decided to take this on because we love fantasy stories and just like love, consuming content. But it takes hours and hours and hours to consume the content, let alone to prepare for a podcast and then to actually film it. So, we do what we can with how much time we can. So like, don't come at me for not watching a bunch of stuff. I ain't got the time. I work 12, 15-hour days and, Nessa's doing her thing as well. Like, so yes, like I'm not faulting you for not being able to write a synopsis for P-Valley, right?
Yeah, but I prepared it in my brain. I just didn't write it down. So basically, P-Valley takes place in Chucalissa, Mississippi, and it centers around a strip club called the Pink. And so we are in the lives of the dancers, the owner of the club, the people who work in and around the club. And you get a look into these people's lives, why they may be dancing, what their background story is. And there's also a bigger plot line going on about the town wanting to bring a casino to the town to generate, because it's supposed to be the poorest city. It's also a fictional city, guys, but it's supposed
Mhm.
to be the poorest city in the US. So now
Oh.
this casino could come in and potentially generate a lot of money, create a lot of jobs. But the
Mhm.
problem with that is, of course, you have to drive out all the businesses that are currently there. So there's a whole plot line about, do people want this casino to come? If it does come, what does that mean for everybody in town? There's a lot of relationship things. This show is very LGBTQ forward, LGBTQ
Mhm.
plus forward. I will say you're gonna see a lot of different facets of life, of people, and what they're into. Some people trying to start music careers, but they live a life on the down low. While other people are out and proud. You'll see mothers, you'll see people falling in love, betrayal, murders. It's a lot going on. It's a really, really big drama. And this season has definitely been pushing the limits. But I think the great thing about this season is I feel like the writing has gotten better, the acting has gotten better, the topics that they're tackling is they're going way more in depth with it. And it's really bringing me in now more than just the spectacle of like, I just want to see what they're doing in the club and all this kind of stuff. So I feel like they're elevating themselves. And I think that's what you want to see in a show. You want to see the growth of a show, you know?
Mhm.
So, great show. Love it. Y'all should check it out. Get into it. All right. And the last two I'm going to go through really quickly. X-Men Evolution, the animated show. This show first premiered in November 2000, ran till October 2003. It first was on Kids WB, but is now on HBO Max. So I wanted something nostalgic, and spoiler warning for Miss Marvel, is part of the reason why I got so excited. Well, okay, let me not give it away, but it's part of the reason why I got so excited for the last 5 minutes of Miss Marvel. But I guess that does give it away. Whatever.
You don't gotta say anymore. It's fine.
I really enjoy the show. It really takes you into like each character. They're a nice little plot twist. It's very nostalgic for me. It's one of the X-Men properties that I have always loved and kind of gone back to. And now that it is on HBO Max and so accessible, I'm excited to rewatch all of it all again. And then the last thing I
Wait,
have.
really quickly, I will say that you talking about it just now made me think that I might go back and watch it, because if we are eventually going to bring mutants to the MCU in general, I think X-Men Evolution, the TV series, is like the one X-Men property everyone agrees was good.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's like,
I love the 90s one as well.
I mean, yeah, but like universally, I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about the X-Men Evolution TV series. And it's like,
Yeah.
to have that at least with the general population as like a starting point for reviewing where the MCU goes, I think would be helpful. So
And I
you
think
convinced me. I'm gonna go and watch it.
for us, that is our X-Men show. Because
Mm-hmm.
like, even though the one in the 90s was out, depending on where you were in terms of fandoms and that kind of stuff, it may not be your X-Men show. For
Mm-hmm.
me, X-Men Evolution was my X-Men show. You know, as it's coming out, it's 2000, I'm like 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm paying more attention to this kind of stuff. I'm just like, oh, I'm liking this. Like it was fun for me to watch for sure.
Cool.
And then the last one I have is The Hobbit, the book, the novel by Tolkien. So I absolutely adore the Lord of the Rings movies, and I like the Hobbit movies. But because I love Lord of the Rings so much, I wanted to go back and read Tolkien's work. So I'm starting off with The Hobbit, which is the prequel, more or less, the prequel to The Lord of the Rings. And you get to meet uh, very similar characters. Some of the characters are the same that do pop up, later on. But we have, dwarves, hobbits, dragons, all the things fantasy dreams are made of. And so I am currently reading that now. I need to find more time to keep reading it or make more time, honestly.
Are you reading it for the first time?
Yes. Yes, I should mention that I am reading it for the first time. So I'm excited to see what the differences are, the
Mhm.
similarities, to get into Tolkien's writing style, which honestly
Mhm.
is very eloquent and feels very elevated from what I think I've been
Have
used
you read
to
have
reading.
you read Lord of the Rings?
I haven't got to, I'm starting with the Hobbits and I'm going to transition into Lord of the
Did you start Game of Thrones? The Song of Ice and
Rings.
Fire, the book.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you started with that and you weren't like The Hobbit should be fine because the way George R. It's similar writing in my opinion, but R is like on a higher level where it feels almost
yeah,
like, and we're getting a little bit off topic, but like reading the Song of Ice and Fire series, and I made it to the middle of the fourth book before I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It felt like I was reading the Bible in some parts where it's like you're giving me all this backstory and I don't need it for this particular point in time. I'm not
yeah.
going to remember it, you know. Tolkien does that a little bit, which
Mhm.
I've read The Hobbit actually. I don't
Yeah,
remember it, but I did read it as an adult. Maybe within the last 5 years, I read it, and then I tried reading the Lord of the Rings book, and I got to like not even the halfway point, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, unfortunately.
yeah.
And I don't remember any of the movies, so I have to go back and rewatch them.
He's very detail oriented and very, very big on world building.
Yes,
He created these languages, the Elven language and everything like
yeah.
that. So it's just like it's I can't imagine what his mind must have been like. Like I can't imagine what it was like up in there. But if this is a glimpse, he got a lot going on. So I'm actually excited to keep pushing through with the book.
That sounds good. Hobbit was a good read. By the end of it, I think we'll talk about it when you're done. We'll do
Yeah,
like a
we get into it.
we'll add it to the next what are we watching or what are we reading list. So
But
my
those
list
are
is
my
pretty.
currents.
Those are
And
your currents.
yes, share yours, please.
So I am currently only watching things that I need to watch in order for us to record pods. If I'm being perfectly honest. Um, so I am like current on what we've recorded on
Mhm.
to this day, to this moment. But what I've been kind of like going back to on my Kindle in different aspects, I've been revisiting three different stories, so all books. So one of them is the Kane Chronicles, and I'm listing that first because we talked about Moon Knight. And the Kane Chronicles include three books: The Red Pyramid, The Throne of Fire, and The Serpent's Shadow, and it's written by Rick Riordan. He is also the same author of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, that book series, that also has a movie with the same name. And so the Kane Chronicles specifically is about a brother and sister who were for about half of their life separately brought up. They were raised by the different sides of their family. And then their Egyptologist dad disappears in some like freak accident that they witnessed. So when that happened, they decide that they're gonna team up and just like stick together as they try to figure out what happened to their father. So they learn that their family is connected to the Egyptian gods, basically. And over the course of the books, they go through an adventure to attempt to save their dad, to learn more about their shared history, and to pretty much save the world, basically, as all these stories do. Everyone's saving
Yeah,
the world. I think it's a great story. It feels like an Egyptian version of. I hate to relate everything to Harry Potter, but same age group of characters when you're like watching it. There's world building, there's magic, there's rules to the world that we're operating in, and so from that aspect, I really enjoy being in another plopped down another world. Some of it takes place in New York and some of the other bigger cities with like calling out monuments that you recognize and things of that sort, which is a little different being an American reading the Harry Potter movies that take place in other countries. So it just feels a little bit more nostalgic. Um, so I really enjoy all of that. It's a great, easy way to like ease people into Egyptian mythology. So you learn, like I said, I knew about Taweret from Moon Knight being the person who like helps transport people through the Duat because spoiler, that happens in the Kane Chronicles, and there's like whole like half a book or a couple of chapters where like they're running around with her trying to look for Ra, like things like that. Um, so that's pretty cool about that. I also learned that in 2020, Netflix announced that they are actually working on a movie on the King Chronicles. So this might be coming to the big screen soon. They announced that it was in development. I'm honestly, I don't know where they're at in that development yet. So I will keep you all posted. I will say they're probably gonna take their time because the author Rick Riordan had a huge problem with the way Century Fox did the Percy Jackson and the Olympians movies.
A lot of
Um,
people did.
a lot of people did. To the point where like halfway through the production of the first movie, he completely cut all ties and was just like, I can't be a part of this because you're butchering the story, which obviously the audience felt was right too. So Percy Jackson and the Olympians is the other book series that I've been kind of back and forth in between the last couple of weeks. And if you haven't seen the movie already, it pretty much tells the fantastical story of a 12-year-old modern demigod, Percy Jackson. And I got this description from Disney Plus because it's coming to Disney Plus. Percy Jackson, who's just coming to terms with his newfound supernatural powers when the sky gods Zeus accuses him of stealing his Mr. Lightning Bolt. Now Percy must trek across America to find and restore order to Olympus. The books are always better than what you're going to see on the big screen, but I'm kind of excited for Disney Plus to take a stab at this story because Rick Riordan is taking like a huge role in executive producing this TV series. So um, he's been very adamant on his blog over the last couple of years that he has a very specific way that he wants his stories to come to life. And if he's involved in the Netflix version of the King Chronicles, I imagine it's going to be really, really good, but it might take a while for it to come out. Yeah. So those two book series by Rick Riordan. And then separately, I've also recently been going back to Artemis Fowl. Now, some of you may be familiar with the name because a movie came out during the pandemic or during lockdown. We're kind of still in the pandemic on Disney Plus. I don't think it got a whole lot of publicity, but it's on there. Doesn't have great reviews. I didn't watch it yet. But the book series in itself, I think, is pretty neat. There are 8 books, and the series is about a young teen genius who is pretty ruthless and cutthroat and is on a mission to find his father when he discovers that humans share the world with a race of elves who are living underground, monitoring our behaviors and interfering when necessary to make sure a balance on Earth is maintained. So Artemis purposely seeks to exploit the elves. Like his job is to like any means necessary, basically, is his viewpoint on the world. And he comes from money and everything too. And we kind of watch how he navigates all of that. So if I had to describe the character, I think he reminds me of Draco and Voldemort from the Harry Potter series, but if they were in Ravenclaw, like super, super smart. Like he's super ambitious, self-righteous, believes that everything he does is right, and he's a borderline sociopath like Voldemort was, but at the same time, his drive is helping his family, like because he loves his family, while also balancing like living up to the name of his rich and super successful father. So that's kind of where the Draco piece comes in, and then also Draco because this character clearly has a shot like a redemption arc coming,
Okay.
so, which Voldemort never had, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed reading it for that reason. So I will watch the movie and get back to you all. But those are kind of the books that I've been dabbling back and forth with when I'm on planes and trains on my like while working.
I was just about to ask, like, does this character have any type of like redemption qualities to it? Because I'm like, not that it's a bad thing to write a book fully about a villain. I mean, hey, go for it, right? But I was just like, why do we like this person? Why are
there is a clear redemption arc there. Like his motivation is helping his father, right? Like and it's not on some like it's not even on like he's not being vengeful or like trying to get revenge per se. A piece of it is like he cares about the people around him. So unlike Voldemort, he can love, and that is obviously what fuels his redemption arc in the series.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I need to reread the Lord. I need to like reacclimate myself with the Lord of the Rings. So that is on my list of things to do next.
Do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's what we have been watching, reading separately. Um, and so now we're going to bring it together with what we are preparing to watch next. Now, in this segment, we'll be discussing our thoughts and feelings about what we plan on watching for the rest of 2022. I know there's a lot of announcements of a lot of things coming out, but we're going to focus just for the next part of the year, the rest of the year coming up. Now, this does not mean that it has to be released this year. It just means that this is what we are focusing on, what we're planning to watch, what we're getting into. So, the first few things that we'll probably be watching together, we'll see, is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
We will at least be starting them together.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll be finishing them together, is what I would say.
Right. So, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, which comes out August 17th on Disney Plus, another MCU show. They dropped the trailer. It's out.
Yeah, we see Professor Hulk in it, so that actually makes me want to watch it a little bit more.
Because we've seen very different variations of Bruce Banner throughout all these movies that have been released in Phase 4, and I don't understand what's happening. So I'm kind of hoping actually that might explain some of that backstory. Any other hopes or feelings you have for She-Hulk?
No.
Okay. The next one is, and I remember the last time we did a pod similar to this, and we were talking about the stuff upcoming. I Am Groot. I was actually excited about this because I knew it's going to be an animated show. I believe it's going to be 5 like short stories about Groot and maybe some of his adventures. And I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. It drops August 10th. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm watching it. It looks super cute.
Okay.
It looks super cute. Yeah, I don't know how into it I'm going to be, but I imagine like everything the MCU does is deliberate. So do I think that we're going to get something in I Am Groot that's going to like change the way we view the rest of the MCU forever? No. But I do think because we're looking at a younger Groot, we're looking at the Groot from like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, like that age range, that we might get more information to help like give more context to something that we've already seen. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
And the merch is going to sell like crazy, I'm sure.
I need to get a little one for my place.
I have like little for my cup holders in the car. Like I have little Groot things. I don't even know what to call them, but it goes in the bottom of the cup holder or whatever, like little absorbent pads. Little baby Groot's face on it, and it's the most adorable thing. It makes me so excited every time.
That's very different from Al, who's been on the pod before, a friend of the pod, Al, who has a Groot statue that's kind of like an end table. So it's like it's big, but it's like it's big, but it's short like an end table. And every time I would visit him, I would like turn it around to face the wall because it freaked me out. I would do it like sometime like late, like right before I left, and then like every time the next morning he'd be like, Why'd you move it? Like stop moving my Groot. And I'm like, it's weird. Like put it in a corner. Anyways, excited for Groot.
Yeah. Next one is Wakanda Forever, which just recently dropped its teaser trailer. Girl, tell me how it felt.
No woman, no cry. I was like, of course, like it's just like hearing that and like seeing. We should probably do a separate thing about just the trailer for this because I don't want this to turn into an entire thing. But you can already tell that so much nuanced, emotional thought and care went into this movie just from them playing a rendition of that song over the clips that they played of Shuri and her mom and Ayoke and like all the women that are now left in Wakanda. Who are obviously mourning something. I mean, in the MCU, technically T'Challa's Black Panther hasn't passed away. So like, they're going to have to explain that. But it's kind of obvious from the trailer that T'Challa Black Panther is gone. I actually think that what we were watching, like certain pieces of it was like flashbacks from the blip. That's my theory, just really quickly. Because what is Shuri and T'Challa's mom's name? The character that Angela Bassett plays, do you know?
I don't.
Okay, that character, like you hear her saying, like, I've lost my entire family, haven't I already given everything? And it's like, you have Shuri now. So that, like, in my head, that was during the blip because both T'Challa and Shuri got blipped.
Mm.
So I think we were seeing bits and pieces of like, like future
That's a
plot.
good point.
Yeah, future plot in Wakanda, but also like a flashback to what happened during the blip in order to like bring us back forward. I saw people underwater and I was like, who are these avatar looking people? This looks great. I don't read the comics, so I know that other people are like, oh, that's this, that's that, whatever. Like maybe they're mutants. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I said all that to say I am super excited for it. And when it dropped, I texted it to a friend, and he was like, "You're the fifth person to text me that. Black people are coming out in full force all over again, aren't
Yes.
we?" And I was like, "Yes, we are."
Yes. Absolutely. And it drops November 11th, the day for my birthday. So no.
11/11/22.
Yeah. I'm
11 plus 11 equals 22. I feel like they did that on purpose.
it's
And we know how the Black community, us like spiritual, like what time were you born people, love us some 11/11. So I think all of that was very deliberate.
so yeah, I am also very excited for it. I'm just curious to know where they're taking the story. Who a lot of people are speculating who is going to be the new Black Panther, because we do see a clip of somebody in the Black Panther suit, and it seems to be very obvious that it's a woman. So people are all speculating. I think it's making Black people really excited to go back to the movies again. We're about to show up and show out one more time for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy about it. Okay. Do you want to take these last two?
Yeah. Let's so the other things obviously that we're watching and that we're preparing for is House of the Dragon, which is a prequel to the Game of Thrones HBO series and probably some level of a prequel for the Song of Ice and Fire book series. That comes out on August 21st, so stay tuned to us um, bringing you coverage for that particular show and also some sort of like let's get ready for it episode. Nessa, are you going to rewatch Game of Thrones to get ready for this show?
Um, probably not in a deliberate, methodical kind of way. Game of Thrones is one of those shows that I love just kind of putting on in the background, anyways, and just kind of running through. So I don't think I'll be sitting there in order to take notes, because although they do mention some of the events that House of the Dragon will be covering, it really has nothing to do with each other. I mean, honestly, I think you could probably really just go watch House of the Dragon without ever seeing Game of Thrones and be perfectly fine.
Most likely.
So, yeah, I'm not too worried because it's not that kind of a prequel. It's not
Mhm.
like, oh, this is happening and it's going to directly lead into the events that we see in Game of Thrones. So I'm not too worried about it. What about
Like
you?
The Hobbit or like Fantastic Beasts, right? Where you see Dumbledore and like all the characters we know. No, I'm not rewatching Game of Thrones. That's 70 something hours of my life that I can barely like keep. I still haven't watched Invincible because I just can't find the time. I'm
Yeah.
not going back and watching Game of Thrones. I will say though that I may do what you mentioned of just like putting it on in the background just to get like just to remind myself what it feels like to be in that world, like some of the rules of the world regarding going for the throne, family dynamics, societal dynamics, things of that sort would be helpful to anyone who's new to this world to learn just like how people do things there. I will say that if you are going to do a rewatch, you should start now. Like yesterday you should have started. So would absolutely recommend you do that, but I will not be doing a full rewatch. Yeah. The other one is Rings of Power, right? Nessa says she's reading The Hobbit. I need to do a complete rewatch of the Lord of the Rings movies, probably the Hobbit movies as well. I'll do in order to get ready for Rings of Power. Rings of Power is also a prequel, I believe.
Yeah.
And it takes place like 1,000 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings. Um, so I think it's after the rings were forged, but before all the events that we see. So it should be interesting to see what we see during that particular time period, and that drops on September 2nd. House of the Dragon is on HBO Max, most likely. are HBO, and The Rings of Power is on Amazon.
Yes, it
So
is.
that should be interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of going to split it up back again because those are the things that we're probably going to watch together. At least, like T said, start together.
Yeah.
We'll see where we end, but we're going to start those together. So, but for on a more personal note, for me, what I will be looking out for or watching is Umbrella Academy season 3, Westworld season 4. Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods is dropping December 21st.
I'm
Shazam,
gonna watch that too.
yeah, Shazam is one of the better DCEU movies. So I'm kind of excited to see where that's coming. I think we also left off the list Black Adam
Yes,
is,
we'll
is
watch that.
soon. So Black Adam we'll be watching. I can't say I'm excited for it, but I'm gonna go watch it.
It's kind of hard to see The Rock be The Rock in every movie, and I'm not convinced that it won't just be The Rock. Like even his role in wow, not Encanto,
Maui as
Moana. Yeah, even his role as Maui in Moana, I was like, that's The Rock. So so I say all that to say that yes, I will go watch Dark. What was it, Black Adam? But I'm not convinced that it'll be like exceptional. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And then there are some things that I kind of want to visit that I've heard other people talk about and kind of rave about and in the DC animated world. So that's going to be Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. I loved watching Batman Beyond as I was growing up. Also was on Kids WB around the same time that X-Men Evolution was. So I actually really want to watch that. Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker on HBO Max. And also on HBO Max, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So those are older movies. Return of the Joker came out in 2000. Mask of the Phantasm came out in 1993. But I've heard really good things about these movies. And as much as, Batman that we do get and all the vision that it causes amongst people, I'm kind of interested to see where the animated movies kind of fall.
That's a good point. One of the things we forgot to add to our list to talk about jointly, we'll add it to the next one, was the Harley Quinn show, which you watched and you put me on to, and I'm one episode away from finishing. So we'll do that next time. But it sounds like the Batman properties in general, when you animate them, they just come out a lot better.
Yeah.
Than you do live action, unless you have Heath Ledger running around doing a very interesting and disturbing depiction of the Joker. So, anyways, I will follow up by saying that the two things on my list for right now, I can't make any promises beyond that, is finishing Invincible, because we know that Invincible 2 is supposed to be dropping sometime before the end of the year. So when that happens, I'll finish out. Nessa's better at this, obviously, than I am, being current. I will finish out watching Invincible, and we'll watch Invincible 2 together. I am committing that. I'm putting it on. I'm on recording, holding me accountable. And then I am actually going to sit down and watch Morbius. Here's why.
Okay.
Didn't get a lot of great reviews. I haven't heard any specific reviews on it, but I think that it might come into the play in the MCU. And when I originally when we went through the original Infinity Saga, I did not watch everything as they came out. Mm-hmm. So when lockdown hit and I went back and watched everything in timeline order, I missed 5 or 6 or 7 movies.
Yeah.
But I had already seen Endgame, and I realized once I went back and did it in timeline order and then watched Endgame that I was missing so much nuance in Endgame by not watching the previous movies. And I don't want that to happen again. I want first time in the movie theater, whenever we get to the next Endgame, to be able to pick up on everything in the moment. Kind of like how in Spider-Man, No Way Home. No Way Home? That was the last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. If you didn't watch or you just didn't understand, there was just so much nuance there that if you didn't have all the background, it was probably still a really good movie, but not as great for the people who knew everything else that was happening. So I say all that to say that I think Morbius, even though it's a Sony property, I think technically Marvel had a lot to do with it, and so I'm just gonna watch it once, and that'll be 2 hours of my life dedicated to the MCU. So
Yeah.
gonna watch that, and I will let you guys know how that goes.
I mean, I'm sure once it drops on wherever it's going to drop, I'll probably uh take a peek at it as well, but it's not at the top of my list, I
Not
guess.
at the top of the list, no. Really quickly, question: Venom and Venom Carnage, MCU or no? I mean, yes,
Uh,
kind of because of the stinger in in No Way Home
you mean like did they produce it?
together. Yeah.
Um, No Way Home for sure. Morbius for sure. I'm not sure. Venom, the original Venom, no.
No. Okay.
Carnage, it could have been a collab. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I'm not sure.
That's fine. Good to know though. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. All right, guys. So be on the lookout for us covering a lot of the stuff that we just mentioned and some more. We'll also be going back to some of our favorites to cover some more popular debates and dynamics that are timeless. So look out for our casual debate segment that we'll be launching by the end of this year. We'll bring up a topic from our favorite fandoms and present a case of why we think the fandom should feel one way about something versus the other. So, for example, is Steve Rogers Peggy's husband during the original timeline of the Infinity Saga? Was Smeagol necessary for Lord of the Rings plot? Was Grindelwald actually in love with Dumbledore? So stay tuned for those fun conversations and more. Make sure you check out our socials at Casual Fangirl _. Tune into the YouTube, subscribe, like, do all the things, y'all. This was a fun pod. We always like talking about the things that we are getting into and what we're looking forward to. And there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, y'all. So stay tuned. Keep kicking it with us. And it's always a pleasure. I am Nessa.
And I'm T.
And together we are the Casual Fangirls.